Hello everyone, welcome to the Rundown. Thanks to AGL. For all your energy needs, go to agl.com.au. Massive Saturday night fixture at Optus Stadium. The West Coast Eagles hosting Hawthorn. The Eagles can finish anywhere between 2nd and 5th. How will it play out? We're about to find out from last week to this week with our experts. Now, by popular demand, the emails, the texts, the social media push, you wanted him to return. But unfortunately, Paddy Sweeney couldn't be here, and Andrew Embley is after a 2-week hiatus. No notes, no explanation.
How are we all? No, very well. And listen, I'd like to firstly apologise to the viewers. Our management team and I just felt like we hadn't been appreciated, Tim. So been able to negotiate an extra $4.50 an episode. So well and truly back, and I'm looking forward to actually seeing if I can boost the viewers this week on the show.
Ryan Daniels, let's go back and let's get more serious. It was an absolute classic game of footy. Disappointing result at the end, but a classic game.
Yeah, it was one of the best games of the year, if not the best, I think. And hopefully a grand final preview. We have to see how the teams shake out. But it's pretty clear that these two teams, as little as they get to play each other, they are matched up very, very well. And what we saw was two great teams, both taking punches. Someone had to win the game. That was Richmond, but I would watch that game over and over again.
What was the point of, what did you like out of it, albeit a 6-point loss? What did you like out of it? I know you watched it at the Dunsborough Tavern, but what did you see that you liked about West Coast?
Well, I liked the way early on how they moved the football. I thought their first quarter against the Tigers was as good as I've seen the West Coast Eagles play. The rain came and so did the Tigers. But you look at a dry day, the way the Eagles are composed, the way that they're able to hit their tools and their tools can stand up and take marks. I think there's a lot of things you can take out of the game. With the way Richmond play, with getting that extra behind the football on a dry day, I'm not sure if it actually works like it happened in the first quarter. But then when it's wet and the game's on the ground, then I think West Coast can adjust with the way that their half forward comes up and maybe play inside forward 50. So I think there's a lot of things that Adam Simpson can take out of the game. Two great teams having a great contest, as you mentioned.
And I think the first quarter was super impressive and they moved the footy really, really well. And it was like, whoa, hold on a minute, this is a statement coming. But what I really liked from a West Coast perspective was the fact that when Richmond were coming with all that momentum and against almost any other side, they would have run over and won by 8 goals. But West Coast hung tough. They took a bunch of punches and they even caught back up at the end of that game. And I thought, oh man, they're going to get over the line here. They didn't, but that was what was impressive to me, that mental toughness to go, no, this is not our style, but we're still right in this and we're going to push again.
There seemed to be a moment just before quarter time where I think the Eagles had a chance to kick another goal and the ball got swung back down the other end. It was almost a 2-goal swing. I reckon that, I don't say it was a game changer, but it seemed to take the momentum out of the game. You spoke about the weather, Embers. I don't subscribe to weather and teams winning better in weather and better perform. Do you subscribe to that?
Absolutely, 100%.
No, with
West Coast, the way the West Coast play, we know that they like to control the game. They maintain possession of the football. They don't play like other sides where they run and gun and take the game on. They're very particular with what they want to do. If you can imagine that the oval is a chessboard and West Coast will go through you, and if they want to go through you, they can do it really quickly. But if they are held up, they're prepared to take the easy one. Now, when it's wet and you actually have to kick under pressure a little bit and your bigs can't take the mark and the ball's on the ground, that's where Richmond are really good. They are really good at winning that ground ball and then they'll go really quickly. And that's what happened for mine. West Coast bigs after quarter time just couldn't have a big impact on the game. And once Richmond got a sniff, they really came hard.
I think you hit it spot on. What they like to do the most is control that footy. When the wet weather comes, that's taken away. So it becomes their plan B, which they do have in them, but plan B becomes the only plan, which is get it forward at any opportunity, just whatever you can do. And I think they have gotten better at playing in the wet. That Port Adelaide game earlier in the year, I think, was a real eye-opener. But they have gotten better, but it's still not their game. It's just not their game.
Yeah, they did certainly try and get the ball. They had many behind the ball. You talk about those two players that Richmond had behind the ball, in particular Grimes. They seemed to, the West Coast Eagles, they tried to get it up the ground, get a stoppage, get it out of bounds, whatever, reset, and then everyone pushed down. Then you saw Kennedy and Darling go inside 50. With that in mind, I want to take you back to the weather. So if it's a final series and it's wet, can the Eagles win?
They can win, absolutely, but they need to probably get it right at the selection table.
But why are they only leaving that to now, knowing full well it's a winter sport and it could be raining and grand final day could be an absolute quagmire?
Well, there's so much can happen between now and grand final day. So heading into that final series, they'll know in a week out whether it's a prelim, whether it's a grand final, what the weather are going to be, and they might be able to adjust. At the end of the day, grand finals, West Coast have been there. They can still win the wet. Don't worry about that. But I just feel like the Eagles, in my opinion, it might be a little bit biased, that they are the most talented team going out at the moment. So on a dry day, I think they've got a little bit of a gap over the rest of the competition. But on a wet day, it just means that sides like Richmond and Collingwood, Geelong for that matter, even Brisbane, the gap just narrows a little bit and just makes it a little bit more even.
Well, you talk about if it's going to be wet from here on. I was at the Waffle Eagles at Leederville when they played East Perth the other night. I've never seen conditions like it. And Marston and also Duggan were next level, along with Tom Cole, were next level in those conditions. They were Marston's ball handling after quarter time in particular was next level, and that's why he's back in that team.
Well, that's the note there. If Duggan was ready, he would have been in instead of Rotham. And again, no knock on Rotham. He played very, very well. But that would have been Duggan's type of game. And that when it's that close, who knows what that selection could have done.
Mark Hutchings, of course, we see he's done the hamstring on his return and he will miss several weeks. Is it too close now to a finals campaign to get him right, to have a role? I'm pretty sure he had the role on Lambert early in the game the other day. It was an interesting role because he didn't go to Dusty Martin, as we know. But is there a spot for Mark Hutchings from here on with one game to go and a finals campaign?
I think he's running out of time, Ryan. I think now a recurring hamstring, the same hamstring, he's missed so much football. If he's available, it's going to be probably around preliminary final week. Now, do you bring someone that's only played one game in 2 months back into the side? I think it's going to be really tough. I like Hutchings in the West Coast Eagles team because he plays an important role for you. He can shut one of the best opposition players down. But I feel like at the moment it's a massive risk to bring any player who is underdone into a big final series.
I think you're right. And the issue with Hutchie is his strength is his running and his run width. And when you've got a banged up hammy, you just might not be able to get that fitness up to where it needs to be. Now, he's probably one of, if not the hardest worker in the team in terms of training. So he will do the work, but the clock is just going to tick too fast, I think.
Hawthorn, Saturday night. They're in a bit of form. They were out of form. They were in form, out of form, and now back in form. What do we make of them? What do they bring to the table? And are they a genuine threat to upset West Coast and maybe push West Coast into a 5th v 8th home final, but 1 week only?
Yeah, it's not the scenario I think we all thought this would be. We thought Hawthorn was down and out. They'd come over here and Roughhead would have played his last game, which he has, but that they would have just had a dead rubber. Unfortunately for West Coast, Hawthorn have a fair bit to play for. And on Saturday night, that'll still be live because the Bulldogs won't have played. So it's going to be a big game. It's going to be tough. I think Chad Wingard has been in sensational form. He had a really quiet year, really slow year after coming over from Port. His last 3 weeks, the last 2 in particular, have been phenomenal. And James Warple has stepped up into that Tom Mitchell role and just come on in leaps and bounds. That kid, he played, 5 games last year, and he looks like a seasoned player in his second year. So those two are the match winners, I think, for Hawthorn. Obviously, Jager O'Meara is a very good player, and they've still got a lot of those senior guys, Smith, Gunston, Barist and Burgoyne. But I think it's going to come down to shutting down Wingard and Warple.
Hawthorn Football Club and Alistair Clarkson are the best team in the competition, in my opinion, at looking at their opposition and being able to come up with a plan, implementing that plan and executing it as good as anyone to be able to shut down the best sides in the competition. We saw them do that against GWS a couple of times this year. So I'm not surprised with anything. As you said, yes, they come over here. I don't think that Hawthorn can play finals. And I think the thing against Hawthorn at the moment, they have been up for a while. Last week's game, the emotion with Jared Roughhead and everything that was put into that game.
Should they play him
I do
again?
think. No, I think they made the right call. I think with Roughhead as well, getting himself up for that game, there is such a big up and then there is a bit of a drop down. I feel like at the moment they're going to come over to Perth after everything that happened last week. Not as much media attention, and I think West Coast got a really big opportunity. We know what's on the line for them. They need to win and win well to be able to get that percentage swing to hopefully go past Brisbane into that second spot.
Yeah, Collingwood, Freo, Geelong was a hat-trick of wins for Hawthorn. Then they lost games to North Melbourne and Brisbane, who are pretty good contenders, or we know Brisbane's a genuine contender, and they've won the last couple of weeks. I'm a bit concerned about their form in the last 2 weeks. They've beaten the GWS, who look gone, your team, and Gold Coast, who we know have been on easy beat streak for some time. So I'm not convinced Hawthorn. I'll put up a fight because you're dead right, because Alistair Clarkson is a super coach and we know what he'll bring, and they'll crack him, but I think class will prevail. I want to take you back to the year. What's the one game, if you had a chance to watch another game this year of West Coast, which one would it be and why? Embers?
Well, my attention span's not great, and to be honest with you, I don't think I could sit back and watch a whole game of football. Just not really interested in doing that. But what I will watch, and I know we've spoken about it, that first quarter of last week, West Coast versus Richmond, that's as good as I've seen the West Coast Eagles play in 2 years. They were absolutely clinical with their ball movement, with their bigs taking marks, with the way that they were able to hit the scoreboard, with their pressure. I look back at that first quarter and I say, wow, they are ahead of the rest of the competition. Now, if they can do that for 4 quarters in a big final, I can't see anyone getting close to them.
As Embers is prone to do, Ryan, he hasn't answered the question.
No.
I didn't ask you what quarter would you like to watch again.
As I said to you, I can't watch 4 quarters. I don't have the time. I don't look in the rear vision mirror. I don't care about what happened. I'm looking forward.
Well, I partially agree with him that I want to watch that whole game again. And here's why. At Channel 7, when we do our match reports, we do a shot list as we're watching. And you fill up maybe 2, maybe 3 pages. On Sunday's game, there were 6 pages full of highlights. That's from both sides. These are hits, these are great marks, these are great goals. There are moments in the game that matter. It was 3 times as good as a normal game. This game was a grand final. It just happened to be in round 22. And that's what I was saying. I really hope we see these 2 teams meet in the finals. That's why it's that game. I mean, there were a couple other ones that I took into consideration. If you're looking from an Eagles fan's perspective, the Derby was fantastic. They dominated, particularly early. And I think against Adelaide away, when they came back and won, when they probably should have lost that game, that was a big one as well. So, but there's no way you can go past Sunday's game. That was the game of the year, not just the Eagles game of the year.
Question without notice. If Brisbane beat Richmond and Geelong beat Carlton, if Brisbane win, Brisbane hold top spot. So West Coast could very well be playing Geelong at the MCG first week of the finals.
Or in Geelong.
It won't be in Geelong. But can we just say, is that not the ideal away game first week of the finals for West Coast?
If you're going to play a Victorian team at the MCG, you want it to be Geelong because that's not their home ground. It's almost like this little...
Do you give Carlton any... I give Carlton an absolute chance of upsetting Geelong.
Yes.
And they are massive odds to win that game.
Yes.
And they are one of the genuine form teams. And Geelong were better on the weekend. But they're only just going, no disrespect. They're only just going. I just got a feeling there's so many permutations and the bounce of the ball is going to play a massive role in regards to West Coast. West Coast will finish in the top 4, no doubt. But, gee, I tell you what, they are...
If this season has taught us anything, it is that
something will
can
happen this week.
It is.
Something will
there'll
happen.
be a draw, or there'll
Yes.
be a major upset, or there'll be a swing somehow,
Yes.
and everything that we think is going to happen will not happen. The AFL right now is just chaos ball, and it's fantastic.
West Coast are good enough, worst case scenario, to go to Brisbane or go to the MCG and play Geelong and beat them in the first week of the finals. No doubt about that. Get a week off, home preliminary final, and then they suddenly become, premiership favourites again.
Yeah, West Coast are an anywhere, anytime team. I remember someone used to say that. Hey, my game that I want to watch in full again, and I speak on behalf of probably almost 100,000 members, is round 16, the 91-point win over Fremantle in the Derby. I think it was significant. I think it was... We're big, we're strong, we're back to where we belong.
That
but
felt
not,
like the switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Then they went and they held firm against Collingwood. And I'm going to tell you, a game that I went and saw myself at Alice Springs. And it was 7,000 people. It was in a faraway place. It was in a strange place. The mood was weird. They trailed for the best part of the day. They turned for home 3/4 time. They needed something special, and they produced it. Their last quarter was awesome. And that could have changed their whole, where they position themselves right now, if they'd lost that game, and everyone would have gone, oh, yeah, it's because it was in a random venue. It was at a venue that they needed something special, and they produced in the last quarter. So 16, 17, 18, I could watch as a box set.
I think the family of Franny Watson would concur with those comments.
Absolutely. All right, so why do they beat Hawthorn? Where do they finish?
I think they finished 3rd. I think the other results will impact that more than them, and I don't think they're going to blow Hawthorn out of the water. I think Hawthorn still have something to play for. I can't see an Alistair Clarkson-led team getting smashed when there's something to play for. So I think they're going to finish 3rd, and I think that means they'll probably play Geelong, because I reckon Brisbane will beat Richmond as well. I think they'll beat Hawthorn because they're a far better side. I think they'll win by 4 goals, and they'll have a little bit of momentum going into September.
Well, I'm going something a little bit different. I think we're going to see West Coast win by 5 to 6 goals. I think we're going to see Richmond beat Brisbane by 4 or 5 goals, and the swing's going to be enough for West Coast to sneak into second spot. I think Geelong will beat Carlton, so they'll finish on first. West Coast will finish second because of that percentage swing. Brisbane third, Richmond fourth.
So they're going to host,
it'll be
Brisbane in the first week final.
It'll be Brisbane, West Coast in Perth.
Wow, Embers. Wow.
There's that chaos ball.
There's the chaos sleeping assassin stuff. You've given us nothing all day. You haven't answered a single question properly. And all of a sudden you come out with an A-class performance. Hey, nice to have you back, great man. Any chance?
Well, the people have spoken, so I'm looking forward to next week's show, hopefully as well.
Yeah, we will too. You'll be here?
I will be here. And before we go, can I just say that the great man Tim Gossage is celebrating 30 years in the media this week.
30 years, eh?
A fantastic career so far, and plenty more to come. So if you're watching this wherever, just a quiet golf clap for the great man Tim Gossage. Thanks for leading us all year, and it'll continue to do so.
Thank you very much. Get onto social media and say something nice. I'd greatly appreciate it. All righty.
From black and white TV to colour. It's been a long journey, Tim Gossage. Congratulations.
As they say, Embers, I was here for your first game and I'll be here for your last. Ryan, Embers, well played to you. Massive game Saturday night. Cheer for your team. It is against Hawthorn, the West Coast Eagles. Where do they finish? Let's hope it's second and they're hosting. But if it's third, if it's fourth or fifth, you've got a feeling they've still got plenty to give in 2019. That has been the rundown. Thanks to AGL for all your energy needs. Go to agl.com.au. Go the Eagles.